So we are currently 3 weeks out from the Arnold Classic Australia, which means we are under 1 week out from the Melbourne Championships. This week I'm going to go through, guys, the peak week protocol leading to a bodybuilding show. This year I'm going to do things slightly different as it is at a qualifier show. I'm going to test out a few new things, see how my body works. In the meantime, I'm going to go and do a bit of an upper body circuit, a bit of a lower body circuit. I don't want to create too much inflammation through my body, especially in the week leading up to into a bodybuilding show. So here we are. We're 3 weeks out from Arnold Classic Australia. We're under 1 week out from the Melbourne Championships. Let's go do some training. In any bodybuilding preparation, the peak week protocol is the most important part leading into a bodybuilding show, as it can either make or break your entire bodybuilding prep in as simple as 1 week. For me, my peak week protocol starts from 7 days out. So if I'm competing on a Sunday, my peak week protocol will start on a Monday. What I'm doing on a Monday and on a Tuesday and on Wednesday is I'm depleting all the carbohydrates out of my body entirely. This is a super important part of the prep, as you want to make sure your body gets nice and flat for those first few days before we go and load those carbs in and sodium back in later on in the prep. At this stage, we're also making sure that we're keeping the sodium levels nice and stagnant. We're not trying to increase sodium, we're not trying to decrease sodium. We're trying to keep the sodium exactly where it's been your entire prep. We don't want that to change. Also, what we're doing is we're making sure, as we're only really eating, well, for me personally, as we're only really eating protein and vegetables, we want to make sure our protein content's a little bit higher than usual, and you want to make sure the vegetable choice is some vegetable along the lines of a diuretic. Me personally, I use asparagus. Thursdays to me is when I start my carb loading. Usually I start my carb loading about 72 hours out from bodybuilding show, as long as I'm in good condition. At the same time, on Thursday, from 72 hours out my bodybuilding show, I completely stop my training as well. That's just so I can let inflammation in my body go down and body can rest up. So when I jump on stage, my body's nice and clean and crisp. In the process of when I'm eating the carbohydrates, I'm making sure I choose nice, easy digestible carbohydrates, white potato or white rice, and I'm cutting my protein content in half. Because at this stage, all I really need is carbohydrates in my body, and I'm making sure I'm eating about every 2 to 3 hours. On Friday, I'll cut my sodium at about 48 hours out from show. This is pretty much exactly the same every single year. It's just what works for me, and I just know it takes about that long for my body to fully deplete sodium out of my system. I'm making sure, as this is my main day of carb loading, I'm making sure after every single meal I'm eating, I'm posing and squeezing all those carbohydrates and water into my muscle bellies after every single meal. That's really, really important. And just same thing again, I'm making sure that after I hit my posing, I'm lying down and resting my body so I don't have excess inflammation leading into the show. Saturday I did exactly the same thing as I do Friday, except for my last meal. Depending on how I look, I'll chuck in a couple of red meat meals with a bit of higher fats. I feel like fats just work for me. Everyone's individually different, but I feel like that since my last 2 shows I've done, I've put the fats back in, and it just worked for me. So that's what I do on Saturday night, sorry. And also another big thing about Saturday, the day before the show, is exactly 24 hours out, I try and time before I jump on stage is when I'll cut my water intake as well. As Sunday's the day I'm competing, when I wake up Sunday morning, all I'm having is really, really dry carbohydrates, so rice cakes and some honey, all that kind of stuff. I'm not having any carbohydrates which contain water, which is the whole purpose of me cutting water out 24 hours out before I jump on stage. Also, what I do is this little trick for myself, which I find works for me. Around about 6 hours, 5-6 hours before I jump on stage, I'll have a kind of a really fatty red meat meal, and I chuck in about another 4 or 5 full eggs, but I make sure when I'm cooking them, I cook them a little bit runny so they digest real nice and easily. I'm also making sure on Sunday that I stop eating solid foods about 3 to 4 hours out of a bodybuilding show, just so I can rest my digestive system and my tummy can come in nice and tight those last couple of hours leading into show. So when I jump on stage and hit those poses, I don't have any distension into my midsection. I think that's really, really important to time that correctly as well. I feel so many people eat way too close to show and their midsections distend a little bit purely because of that. Another little trick I do 45 minutes before I jump on stage, that's where I put all my salt back in 45 minutes on. So one, it prevents the cramping from having low sodium in your body and having no water in your body. And two, it just kind of, just for me personally, I feel like when I put the sodium bacon, my muscles just pop that little bit more. So I might just have, say, 150 or 200 grams of Doritos or salt vinegar chips or any chips like that. And that's what I kind of do 45 minutes before I jump on stage. Now, last but not least, in the last 20 minutes leading into it, in the last 20 minutes before I jump on stage, as we're getting called up, I'll have some kind of a vasodilator, where it be agmatine sulfate or arginine or something like that. That just brings out all the, that just brings out a massive pump in my body. It dilates my blood vessels, so all those carbohydrates and sodium can really suck into my blood vessels, into my muscle cells, and then get that nice full effect. And then finally, you know, I jump on stage and we win the show. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys got as much out of that as you possibly could. Next up, we're going to go over the Melbourne Championships. We're going to go over the running of the show. We're going to go over some of the placings of the show and what I've got to do to make myself the best I possibly can in the lead up to the Arnold Classic Australia. To stay updated with our videos, like our Facebook page or subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you guys next week.